said, oh, this team can win an NBA championship this year. Well, you're almost there. You made it to the NBA Finals. Are you still just that confident?
Very much so.
All right. Last but not least are the defending Eastern Conference champion Miami Heat. Now, if you predicted the Miami Heat to make it out of the Eastern Conference and represent the East in the NBA Finals, you should have went to Vegas and put a lot of money on that. I did not see that coming. I doubt if anybody outside of a diehard Miami Heat homer saw that coming, which they probably would have said Miami anyway. But Miami was the surprise team, especially in the bubble. Like, I think during the season, a lot of people thought that Milwaukee was the favorite. They looked as dominant can be in the regular season. But in the bubble, Miami shut their water off. They locked down Giannis, even though, his numbers still looked pretty good. And Miami just, if you watched the playoff, you saw how good Miami is. It makes you have a different respect for the organization, even though everybody has known that Miami Heat has a really strong organization with Pat Riley, with Spo, and all the continuity that they have there. But what makes the Miami situation even more special is that Bam and Tyler Hero, Duncan Robinson, and even Kendrick Nunn weren't guys that were like top 5 picks. Like, I personally did not see Bam being as good as he is. I thought maybe he could develop into an all-star, but I didn't see him developing into an all-star this early. He's a max player. He's one of the best centers in the league. And somehow, I don't know if he had it or not before Miami, but somehow he's turned into like a point center. Tyler Hero, I thought he was a good shooter in college. I definitely thought he was worthy of a lottery pick. But you couldn't have told me that he was the type of player that would have a high impact on the team that is going to the NBA Finals as a rookie. So Miami has some type of magic that they're, and I just finished talking about Orlando Magic, but Miami has a real magic as far as like developing players in the draft. And this year they have the 20th pick in the draft. Now, I feel like with this pick, they have a few needs that they would possibly have to address. Starting off with Goran Dragic, he's a free agent. Whether or not he returns to Miami is questionable. I think on a short-term contract, it makes sense, but he's like 34, 35. He's probably looking for his last big contract. I know Miami wants to keep cap flexibility because there's rumors that they're going after Giannis. I've heard Victor Oladipo rumors. And they'll, depending on what they do with Bam's contract, if they can get him to wait another year, then they should have the cap room to sign another max player, which would make them even more dangerous. If Dragic becomes a free agent, then I definitely see them looking to add another point guard. Jay Crowder is a free agent. Derrick Jones should have some interest in free agency because of his athleticism, and he's so young, and he just has defensive potential. Myers Leonard could be available, and they may need to replace him. I want to say he started the majority of the games for them this season, so they could look for a big that they could replace Leonard, especially if it's a stretch big. I think that could be a need that they need to fill. So with pick number 20, and the way this draft is, Miami should be able to find a pretty decent player that can come in and crack their rotation early. So I'm just going to name a few guys that I think that could possibly be available. Now, this draft is tricky, as I mentioned before. I really don't know if there's that big of a gap between pick 15 and maybe pick 30. There's a few guys that you can say that are definitely, top 15, 16, 17, 18. But there also are guys that you just don't know that they could slide and be available to Miami at number 20. I think Tyrell Terry would be a good fit there. He seems like he fits the Heat culture in a sense. If Dragic is gone, then he could come in, and I don't know if he'll be their starting point guard, but he definitely has the shooting ability to fit their offense. To be honest, I never heard of Tyrell Terry coming into this year. And I consider myself a guy that follows grassroots basketball pretty tough. And I definitely didn't see him as a potential first-round pick. So he's come out of nowhere. I've seen videos where he's allegedly has grown a couple inches, added some weight. And I like his game. Like, I saw a really confident kid that was undersized as far as weight, that was aggressive. He showed some toughness, a lot of confidence in his shot as far as letting it fly. Sometimes you felt like his shot selection was a little questionable, but I think it all ties into his confidence. And so I look at like Hero. He's a very confident guy. I mean, I never would have thought I'd see a Pat Riley team, even though he's not the coach, but he's still like the mastermind behind the team. But I never would have thought I'd see a Pat Riley team where you have a rookie shooting pull-up threes in transition. And so it all kind of ties into just the confidence and the swagger that Hero has. And I think Tyrell Terry has a little bit of that in his game. I don't think he's Steph Curry-like. I don't think he's Trae Young-like, but I feel like he has molded his game to be similar to theirs, so I think that he could be a good fit. Tyrese Maxey could possibly be available. I've seen a lot of mock drafts that he's anywhere from 18 to 22. Now we're talking about a guy that was a lottery pick, at least a projected lottery pick going into this draft. I've also seen him in the lottery also. So you just never really know with this draft, like I mentioned before. But I think that he could possibly be available to Miami. He would be a good defensive player. I think that with their offense, I think he would fit in as far as playing next to like Jimmy Butler, because I don't think he's like a point guard at this point in his career. But I think he could play off the ball as far as like with a Jimmy Butler, as far as like how their offense is with all the dribble handoffs. I think that with the pressure that he can put on defenses, because he likes to get downhill, and I think he's a really good finisher. Now, if he can improve his three-point shooting, which was kind of shocking to me. I thought he was a much better shooter coming into this season than his numbers indicated. Now, if it's a situation where he just didn't have a good year shooting, then I wouldn't be shocked by that. But he could also be, again, another one of these Kentucky players that ends up outperforming his draft position. And Miami has two guys, like I said, Bam and Tyler, who are prime examples of Kentucky players that outperform their draft position. So if Tyrese Maxey is available, if you're Miami, you probably can't pass him up due to the success that you've had with your recent draft picks out of Kentucky. So I think Maxey, if he's available, could be a good fit. Another player that I think could possibly be available is Jalen Smith. Skilled guy, skinny as a rail. I mean, he's really skinny. I don't know how much weight he'll be able to add on because his frame just looks so narrow as far as like the waist down. But he's a unique player. I think, in my opinion, I think he could end up being a lottery pick just by fit, because I think there's some teams that are in the lottery that he may not be the best player available, but I think he's the best fit, especially because a lot of teams I feel like are really going to try to make playoff runs next year. I think if I had to guess, I'd say Oklahoma City Thunder, if they get rid of Chris Paul, is probably the only team out west that probably doesn't figure to be in a playoff hunt. But other than that, I think that Jalen Smith could come in and help a few teams in the back end of the lottery in the Western Conference. But if he's available, I think he easily could fit in with Miami as far as just replacing Myers Leonard as a big that can stretch the floor. I think he gives more on the defensive end as far as rebounding and shot blocking than Myers Leonard would. So Miami taking Jalen Smith, if he's available, I think would be a good choice for them. Another player that I've already mentioned, Josh Green, he could, his range is all over the place. I could see him going anywhere from 15 to 25, which means if Miami's at 20, he could fall in the middle there. I think that he could be a good replacement for like a Derrick Jones. He's tough-nosed. I think that he has the potential to be a good shooter. Although on paper his shooting percentages looked good, for whatever reason, I'm just not 100% sold on him as a shooter. I think his percentages are higher or better than what he really is as a shooter. It is kind of like the opposite of Tyrese Maxey. but I think Josh Green kind of fits the Heat culture with his toughness and how hard he plays, and he definitely gets after it on defense. So I think he could be an option there. Another player that I like, who I think would be a very good replacement for Derrick Jones Jr., is Tyler Bey. Tyler Bey is one of my favorite players in the draft. He's unique because he's like an undersized power forward. He rebounds like a big, one of the best rebounders in this class. Although he's undersized at 6'7", I don't think he needs the ball in his hands to be effective. He's the energy guy, multi-positional defender. I think in a pinch he may be able to defend like 1 through 4, very switchy. If he can improve his outside shot and become a consistent outside shooter, then I think that he is one of those guys that will be a very valuable piece on a championship caliber team, just because of the value that he would bring as a defensive player, energy, and his rebounding. So Tyler Bey could be an option for Miami. Another option at point guard is kind of like a safe pick as far as like, I think he's more so of a game manager than anything else, but Théo Maledon from France could be an option there. Now, I rarely see Pat Riley draft international players, so I could be wrong there, but I think that he could be someone that Miami has an interest in, just because I just imagine that they're going to look to fill a need at point guard. And another player that could be available, again, we're talking about a wide range of guys. Kira Lewis, I think he goes higher. I wouldn't be shocked to see him go in the lottery. But again, I've also seen mocks where he falls out of the top 20. And so I think that if you're Miami, you have to, look at him. If he's available, I don't know if you can pass him up, because although he's not Dragic, I think he could play a similar role as far as putting pressure on the defense with his foot speed and quickness, and as far as getting into the paint. I really felt like in the NBA Finals, Miami missed Dragic's ability to get in the paint. He's such an aggressive driver and slasher, and he's so physical. Now, you won't get that out of Lewis because he's probably like 170 pounds max. He's not as physical as Goran, but I do think as far as being able to, like I said, get into the paint and make that pass to the corner that leads to another pass, and as far as like collecting hockey assists based off his speed, I do think that he would be an option there. But again, you never know, man. Like, this draft is all over the place. Another player that I failed to mention is Jay Crowder. I believe he's a free agent, and I definitely think that he comes back to Miami. He played a very, very valuable role. I mean, he was a steal. I don't know if he was like a throw-in in the trade, but, when they made the trade for Iggy, I didn't think that Jay Crowder would be their starting power forward. So I expect him to be back, but in the case that he's not back, then that's where I think like a Tyler Bey would be able to come in and possibly crack the rotation at the 4 spot. As far as Miami, I really think that this is an important draft for them, because I think they'll be looking to add cheap talent that can come in and crack their rotation, play valuable minutes, because I don't think that they want to spend any money this summer, because they're preparing for the 2021 offseason, which, like I said earlier, Dragic is the key. I wouldn't be shocked to see him in Dallas. I think he has ties to Luka Doncic, obviously on the Slovenian national team. They share the same agent. But I'm really curious to see if they bring him back or not. He'll definitely have a lot of interest around the league. So if other teams are offering a long-term deal and Miami's only offering like a 1+1 or 1 year deal, then I could definitely see him on the move, which makes their pick at number 20 even more important for them, because I imagine they're looking to compete next year.